Max Verstappen does the Saturday double for the second consecutive event, winning the Miami sprint race and then backing up a few hours later by claiming pole position for the Miami Grand Prix. The busiest team of the day, well, if we can call them a team, were the stewards by quite a margin, as we will get onto a little bit later. From RacingNews365.com, my name is Nick Golding and I'm joined, as always, by lead editor Ian Parks with another stunning background. Ian, obviously a lot of talking points, it is a mega background, it's a mega stadium. Ian, obviously a lot of talking points is about the stewarding, but we've got to start with Max because he mastered the sprint race once again with another comfortable victory, backed it up with his 7th consecutive pole position, one short of the record held by Ayrton Senna of 8 consecutive poles, which he can actually match in Imola of all places. It's the dominance we've come to get used to now since 2021-2022.
You can't make up that kind of scenario, can you really, when you think about it? Hello everyone, by the way, thanks for tuning in and watching. Pleasure as always. So the fact that he could match that record of Ayrton's at Imola, as I say, that's dream headline scenario for us as media, dream scenario for many fans out there as well, F1 fans. Just, again, Max just lit up this track. Dominant, superlative. We're running out of, to be in fairness, we're running out of words to use what Max and Red Bull are achieving right now. It really is something truly special. They are just on board, on top of everything. I had a little chat with the Pirelli communications director today, Luca Colliani, and he turned around and told me that no other driver out there is doing what Max is doing with his tyres. He's just the master of rubber management at the moment. Absolutely incredible job. And again, we say it many, many times, but we just have to give credit where it's deserved for what both Max is achieving, what he's doing with that car, and what Red Bull is doing as a team to get him into that position as well. Incredible stuff from Max once again. I have no doubt, barring any kind of mechanical incident, that he will follow it up with another Grand Prix victory on Sunday and just make it yet another complete Max weekend here in Miami. Max in Miami.
The double M. He was kept honest, though, in both the sprint race and qualifying by Charles Leclerc, despite Leclerc obviously missing pretty much the entirety of FP1, as we discussed yesterday. Leclerc finished second in the sprint race. He's qualified on the front row and actually tried to have an attack at Max on the run into the first corner of the sprint race. There is a chance that whilst Max is the outright favourite, we actually could see Leclerc taking the fight to him tomorrow.
From a racing and sporting perspective, from the neutral perspective, of course, that's what we'd love to see. Of course, every Max Verstappen fan out there just wants to see their guy cruise off into the sunset. I have no doubt that that's going to be the case. Let's hope Charles can give him a little bit of a fight. He's back with a bang this weekend, Charles. He's struggled. And by his own admission, he knows he's struggled as well. Most recently, he's been overshadowed, outraced, outthought a little bit by Carlos Sainz, his teammate, over the past couple of weekends. This weekend, he's been back on it. His own time management has been really strong. And as you mentioned, as we discussed in the first F1 update, looking ahead to his Miami Grand Prix, he had no practice. You know, he had that bizarre incident during the first practice session. One hot lap, nothing more, went straight into sprint qualifying, pretty much nailed it, and he's followed on from there. Quite clearly, he has that car beneath him that he's got working. He's managed to get his tyres working as well. And that's been the absolutely overriding factor of this weekend so far. Can you get your tyres working? A lot of the drivers today, speaking to them in the post-10, Lewis Hamilton being one. Who else? I think of Pierre Gasly, another. Alex Albon, another. They managed to get the tyres working in one session, then second session, a mystery. It didn't happen. just complete baffle. Daniel Ricciardo was another. Got his
Wow.
first set. Got his first set okay. He felt he did okay. He knew that within the car there was more to come. As we know there is. You do your first run, you're always confident there's going to be more to come in that second run. Lower fuel, fresh set of tyres. It just didn't happen for him. And that's why he's starting at the back, not getting out of Q1 compared to his magnificent performance to get all the way into SQ3 as he did for sprint qualifying, lined up fourth on the grid, got fourth in the sprint, absolutely on a high as he conceded. His team celebrated, for a short period before they had to go into qualifying. Tyres, that second set of tyres in Q1 did absolutely nothing for him. Similarly with Lewis. Tyres in Q3 did nothing for him. Similarly with Pierre. Magnificent performance he felt with his Q1. Really special. He described it. Absolutely his best qualifying lap that he felt over the course of this season. Q2, although he's got his best qualifying position of the season, just didn't get that same feeling out of the tyres. He said that he noted that his lap in Q1 would have been good enough for 8 in Q3. That goes to show what he felt with that set of rubber from his Alpine. Didn't happen for him in Q2. Really strange feelings across the board from pretty much every driver with regard to those tyres. Major game changer this weekend.
As you mentioned, it has been really weird because even Max, despite dominating as usual, he's not been happy either. He's been complaining of, getting the tyres into the right window. But you mentioned that Daniel Ricciardo, he today epitomised the saying from hero to zero, P4 in the sprint race. We said yesterday he could be in with a podium shout. Wasn't to be, but looked incredible. And then out in Q1, and of course we'll start from the last row of the grid because of his 3-place grid penalty. It really is, from the highest to the lows for Daniel when he's looked good all weekend up until qualifying.
Yeah, we weren't far off with that. Well, I wasn't far off with that podium.
For our predictions, we were quite close.
He was actually, from the start, he was actually running third for a short while. Yeah. Sergio managed to get him, and you thought then that once Sergio had got in, that Sainz would go past him, that Oscar Piastri would go past him after everything unravelled after that turn one shenanigans, and we're obviously going to come on to that very shortly. It didn't happen. Sainz got close. 0.2 seconds, I think he got at one stage on a couple of occasions. Just couldn't get past. And that goes to show that despite the decent straight here, despite the DRS, those tyres are playing their part again. That they can't get them on that, off that knife edge, let's put it that way, off that knife edge, because that's what a lot of drivers have been feeling, that the tyres have been on a knife edge. Carlos just couldn't get them off that knife edge to then launch the attack that was necessary for him to get Ricciardo. Same with Oscar behind. He got close to Carlos, but a little mini DRS train, and as I say, couldn't get him past Carlos, and therefore unable to then attack Daniel. Daniel ultimately did superbly with his defence to hold on to that fourth position, but then going into qualifying, we just discussed that those tyres just did not work. Well, that second set of tyres in Q1 just did not work for him. He couldn't get the same feeling. Really strange weekend here at the circuit. Really strange indeed. And a lot of drivers, a lot of teams, they're really baffled by what's taken place. So,
well, as Hamilton described, actually to the media pin, which you were at, he was saying throughout his career, he's never known the operating window for the tyres be so, and his word was minuscule. Because it's that difficult. Just to quickly run through the top 10 for those who missed it. Obviously, it's Verstappen on pole, Leclerc P2, Sainz P3, Perez P4, Norris and Piastri P5, P6, Russell Hamilton P7, P8, Hulkenberg P9, once again the star for Haas, although we'll talk about Haas in a second, and Yuki Tsunoda P10. The reason I've run through that quickly is because we've got to talk about the sprint race, which is where all the drama kind of unfolded. We've got to start with the first corner because Lando Norris, who has also shown some good pace, was out after the first corner. To cut a long story short, Lewis Hamilton obviously qualified P12, ploughed into the first corner, made contact with Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll, as a result, made contact with Fernando Alonso, who then made
No,
contact himself
no.
with Lando Norris. You're going to go for... Oh, this is what the
Sorry,
cameras
Nick.
showed.
Sorry,
It's
Nick.
what the cameras showed.
No. I went through this with Sky presenter Anthony Davidson. He actually showed me on the Sky pad. David Croft was stood there alongside as well. And we went through this frame by frame. Obviously, yes, you've got Lewis darting up the inside.
And it was
Fernando's
a dive and a half.
And it was a dive. But as was Ayrton Senna once said, and we'll bring him back into the conversation, if there's a gap, you're not a racing driver if you don't go for it.
Yep.
There was a gap. There was a sizable gap. Obviously, from Fernando's perspective, he'd left the gap because he'd obviously seen in his mirror Lewis launching. What happened there is, because Fernando has basically then decided to take more of a straighter line into turn one, Lance has cut across. He hasn't seen Fernando in his mirror. In cutting across, Fernando has then hit Lance on his side. So that was the first contact. What's happened then? Lewis has had a little lock-up with his right front. That's enough to ensure that he can't take enough of the apex to make turn one comfortably. In doing so, he's then gone into the side of Fernando. Those three as a trio have then basically hit the back of Lando. So Lando's out, Lance is out, Fernando with enough damage has gone to the back.
Yeah.
And that's effectively his sprint race done. The only one that's managed to come out of it cleanly in some respects, despite running into the side of Fernando, is Lewis. The stewards determined that it was 6-1, half a dozen of another. They could not determine, and in their words, who was predominantly or wholly to blame. And that's the key. Because of this chain reaction of events, that they couldn't pin it on Lewis enough. So no penalty. So we then come out of that. Lewis has obviously then got his position on track. And now we're going to go into arguably the even bigger talking point as to what unfolded with him and Kevin Magnussen. I'll let you lead into it and then we'll discuss it from there, Nick.
Well, you mentioned that the next incident was with Kevin Magnussen, or should I say incidents, because it was more than one. It was, to watch, it was brilliant. And actually Hamilton was full of four. It ended up being Kevin Magnussen receiving 35 seconds worth of penalties, which in a 100-kilometre race, 19 laps, is actually quite staggering and quite an impressive feat. So hats off to Kevin. Effectively, Kevin was doing, as we've seen, it was in Saudi Arabia, I believe, this kind of strategy where Nico was ahead and you know, points at everything for Haas. They need the points. So Kevin just held the pack up a little bit, defended like an absolute lion, and then some, both on and off the circuit, quite literally. And it was simply the case. Lewis could not find a way past. He was forced off the circuit. Kevin also cut a couple corners, particularly the chicane at turns 15 and 16. And it just unfolded into what you'd expect to see perhaps in junior categories. And there has been some really strong words about Kevin coming out of it.
There are two parts to this. The first part is the going off track and gaining a lasting advantage. That's the wording. Now, for that, he was looked at on 4 occasions. 3 of those, he received the 10-second penalty fee. So that's your 10 plus 10 plus 10. That's your first 30 seconds. He was also given a black and white flag. Now, despite the fact there were 4 incidents, he was never shown the black flag. But because of the accumulation effect, within the regulations, the stewards then said, because you've been penalised once, twice, 3 times, we're going to add another 5 seconds on top. So there's your 35 seconds. The second part to this story is going off track and not giving the position back. Now, the FIA has determined, however you want to look at this, rightly or wrongly, that it is up to the driver as to whether he gives that place back. Quite clearly, he decided, I'm not going to give the place back, I'll just take the penalty instead. Just before we started this F1 update, was in the media session with the McLaren trio of Lando, Oscar, and team principal Andrea Stella. Andrea left no stone unturned in his condemnation. Unacceptable was his strongest word used. More pertinently, he turned around and said that, in his opinion, Kevin should be told to go home, think about things for a Grand Prix weekend, reflect on his lack of sportsmanship, and when he's ready, then come back and compete fairly in Formula One. That is one of the strongest things I think I've ever heard a team principal come out and say in assessing another driver's performance. The drivers, Lando and Oscar, both had slightly differing opinions. Lando in particular turned around and said that what Kevin did was smart, because how do we look at Formula One? Individual drivers or a team sport? If you look at what Kevin did, who was doing it for the team? He was defending or trying to defend Nico's position ahead up the road, as you pointed out, in Saudi Arabia. But when you then got to look at what Sergio Perez did, Abu Dhabi 2021 against Lewis Hamilton.
Oh no, we're going back to 2021.
But here's the difference in terms
it's too late for 2021.
Yeah, no, I'm not going down that road. But if you look at the way, because it was mentioned as well, if you look at the way Sergio defended, there was a bit of dark arts to it, but it was beautiful defending. He didn't have to go off the track. He didn't have to do what Kevin did. Kevin did his defending in a very different way. He used the dark arts and then some. So that's why I'm trying to draw the parallel here, because Sergio did it in a sporting, yes, dark arts, but a sporting way, in that, as I say, he defended brilliantly, and that allowed Max to get away. And, you know, we all know what unfolded afterwards. No need to go down that path again. Kevin did it in a very different way. And he even admitted in the pen that he deserved all the penalties.
Well deserved was his exact words.
Well deserved.
Which is
they were well deserved,
actually.
You know, there was no apology. He did what he had to do for the team. In fairness to Kevin, he did own up and say, look, that's not me as a driver. I don't like doing that. I don't like racing that way. So, but he did it for the team. So again, this is the nature of Formula One. We always look at the drivers as individuals, collecting points for the Drivers' Championship. But of course, conversely, they're working for the team. And it is in essence a team sport at the end of the day, because yes, the drivers are individual on track, but they're also working for the hundreds, and in some cases, with regards to the bigger operations, the 1,000+ people, not only at trackside, but also at the factory, to give them the car, to get those points. And those points ultimately, as we know, turn into multi-millions of dollars, bearing in mind where the team finishes in the Constructors' Championship. The drivers don't earn points, it's what the team owns. So as far as Kevin's concerned, he's done his part today in earning his team points that could ultimately end up with multi-millions of dollars by the time this particular Constructors' Championship plays out at the end of this season.
Well, let us know in the comment section what you think correct penalty should be for Magnussen. You know, is a race ban what he deserves? You know, should he be staying at home for a race? Let us know what you think. Was it over the limit, or was it just about okay? It'd be interesting to get your thoughts. Go for it.
Just one final point. An additional Stewart's investigation was conducted. I forgot to mention also, of course,
there's been so much
into his unsportsmanlike behaviour. Bearing in mind his comments, no further action, which means that, bearing in mind he had 3 penalty points on his licence added, given his cumulative effect of all those penalties, that took him up to 8. If the stewards had determined that he did act in an unsportsmanlike way, they could have added yet another 3 penalty points, maybe even more if they had been given the severity or otherwise of his actions, that could have taken him over that 12-point threshold, which in turn would have obviously then led to that race ban and him, for Andrea Stella purposes, sitting at home and reflecting on his actions. That's now not going to happen, but he is up to 8 points. So, like a couple of other drivers, he's getting close to a race ban. Fernando Alonso being one of them, I believe. I think he's up to a good number of points now. He's not far away. So, given the way the stewards are acting this season, and they are absolutely clamping down on seemingly everything that's going on track, so many decisions that have had to be made so far over the course of this weekend, it would not surprise me one iota if a driver does ultimately hit that 12-point threshold and they are given a ban. This is the way it's going this season so far in Formula One.
The craziest thing is that even when Hamilton did get past Magnussen and provisionally finished P8, he then got a drive-through penalty, which was converted to a 22nd time penalty for going 10.7 kilometres an hour over the pit lane speed limit because a safety car was needed to clear the debris after the first corner incident. So the safety car went through the pit lane, which was when Hamilton sped in the pits. And the funny thing as well, not really funny anymore, just kind of sums up how harsh the stewards are being. The first corner incident, the only driver to technically be penalised was Lando Norris for after the collision for crossing the live circuit and received a €50,000 fine. However, that first corner incident has was spoken about in detail, particularly by a driver you mentioned, Fernando Alonso. He's very unhappy seemingly with how Spanish drivers in particular are being treated, has spoken and was spotted speaking to FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem leaving the circuit. What is it exactly Alonso's unhappy about? Because there was some, I've read the quotes, there were some really powerful lines.
Well, it was very strong, very strong. Had the pleasure of standing in front of him actually and asking a couple of relevant questions with regards to this. He is unhappy that he feels there is at present, given some of the decisions that have gone against him, that there is an anti-Spanish bias. And he mentioned that he was going to seek out FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem just to ensure, just for his peace of mind, that that was not the case. I'm sure Mohammed has absolutely defended his organisation and his stewards to the hilt and reassured him that it is far from the case. But he was concerned that his nationality was playing a part. Powerful words, something you rarely see or hear, should I say, in many sports these days, never mind just Formula One. But Fernando, very much a man who speaks his mind these days, and fair play to him, because we don't often get that with sportsmen across many sports. They toe a party line, but Fernando's so experienced these days, so seasoned, with everything that he does on track, off track. He was really, you could see it. It was almost like there was a little bit of this pent-up anger inside him. You could sense the terseness in his words as he came out with them, came out with his comments. Not happy, but as you said, I didn't know about that. I think that's something
he was
that I've just learned,
with
that he was spotted having that conversation. Yeah. So quite clearly, he would have hung around and wanted to have this chat with Mohammed. Hopefully, he got the answer that he was seeking. We'll see going forward, because my word, if anything now else crops up either tomorrow or Imola or Monaco, the next two races that follow this, back-to-back those two at the end of this month, that he feels where he's being unjustly treated, prepare for something again equally as strong, because I'm sure he's not going to be happy. I'm sure he's going to bring it out yet again.
It has been, for those who are watching, an eventful day and a late one. This is actually being another record-breaking video for F1 Update. Another long one, but when there's so much to talk about, we can't just cram it into 10 minutes. It's impossible. But we do very, very quickly need to do the fastest predictions of our lives. I thought yesterday was the fastest. Today needs to be even faster. I'm going to go first. I think Alonso starts P15 with the adrenaline he's going to have with him after today and everything he's spoken about. I think he's going to get a top 5. I just have a feeling we've got a crazy race tomorrow. With the way the tyres are behaving, the way the drivers are struggling as well. I just think Alonso, a top 5, I think will be an unexpected result. I think one that he probably would be quite happy with after this weekend.
Well, in fair play, yes, you would, but I'm sadly, I'm going to burst your bubble. Unfortunately, the sprint race today gave us a very clear indicator that this circuit is, at present, given the tyre situation, is A, very difficult to overtake, and B, the DRS just does not have the effect. We saw the DRS trains play today during that sprint, and the lack of overtakes was striking. So unfortunately, as much as you say, unless there's any other incidents,
it's a bold prediction for a reason.
Then I know it's going to be a bold prediction, but you know what? How are we going to come out with bold predictions when we were given the dose of the sprint today that just didn't lend itself to anything happening other than what happened at turn 1? And again, that little butterfly effect that we talked about following the Chinese Grand Prix with Valtteri Bottas's retirement, and what happened after that. Again, that's all it takes. One little incident, not quite so little in turn 1 on this occasion, but that cumulative effect, that knock-on effect of everything that then goes on after it. So I really hope you're right, Nick. I really do hope that something happens and we get that little knock-on effect again, because at the moment, tomorrow's race is just going to be the top 5 as you were. Top 6, maybe top 8, given the positions of where the Red Bulls, the Ferraris, the McLarens, and the Mercedes are. I really hope you're right. Do you want a bold prediction? I'm going to go Hulkenberg top 5. Why not?
Why not? Not as well. That's something. That's not. I think mine's bolder, which says a lot about Hazard's progress.
Yours definitely bolder, because you've got Fernando coming through 10 places. I've only got Nico leaping up 4, so yours is definitely bolder than mine.
He's a 2-time world champion for a reason. For those watching, let us know your bold predictions and just your top 3 predictions in general in the comment section below, and any other talking points you want to discuss from this lengthy video. It has been a long one, but like I said, it's been an eventful day, and one that the stewards are probably happy is coming to an end. From myself and Ian, this has been the F1 update. We'll catch you for the next F1 update after the Miami Grand Prix on Sunday. We'll see you later.
Take care, folks.